direction. No, I'm talking about it.
It's ready though.
Okay, ready? All right. Good afternoon. My name is Tim O'Brien, and I'm a PhD candidate here at the University of Houston and a member of Students Against Sweatshops. Thanks for coming today. We have a statement we're going to make, and then we're going to take questions. We've had more than a week to review the Apparel Task Force report, and we have many concerns. The first concern is the imbalance of faculty to students and staff on the task force itself. It's 5 faculty, 1 staff, 1 student. Secondly, the qualifications of the unelected task force that Provost Don Foss chose brings up a red flag. When we asked, Foss would not reveal his methodology or criteria that he used to select the faculty members. Our research into the faculty task force member scholarship shows that not one has published anything related to the issue. Yet at the same time, there are many UH faculty members who are qualified and who have published in the field. For example, economics professor Thomas DeGregory has spent the last 40 years advising governments of third world countries in Africa and Asia. DeGregory has published widely in the field, and his articles have been widely cited. DeGregory regularly visits China and has seen the changes taking place and has advised the administration's experience. Another example of a faculty member that's qualified is Dr. Jill Sunday, who's an assistant professor of marketing and entrepreneurship at UH Bauer College of Business. She was quoted in a recent article in the Houston Chronicle about conscientious consuming, where she said, "Consumers pay attention when there is negative news about a company, including the use of child labor or the abuse of its own employees." A third member of the faculty who's very qualified, he could have been on the committee, is Dr. Jenna Abbott. She's a full professor and she's an attorney, and she's the Specs Charitable Foundation Professor in Social Responsibility. She's also an adjunct professor at the law school where she teaches negotiations, and her research interests are corporate social responsibility. It's exactly relevant to our issue. So I could go on and on about faculty members who are qualified to be on a task force like this, but you get the point. So now I'd like to go through the task force report, quote, report, unquote, point by point. Their report says 2 of our task force members had the opportunity to visit factories in China and India, and were able to see and report firsthand on labor conditions there. That sounds really great. Some faculty members actually went to China and India and viewed the labor conditions. Unfortunately, they say they visit the factories. There's not one more word about that in their report. Nothing. So let me repeat that. Their report says they visited factories in India and China, but there's not one word about what they found. Did they visit a factory where UH apparel was made? Did they interview workers? Did they announce their visit beforehand? Workers being interviewed in front of their bosses can't be candid. Then we look at the second paragraph of the report where they conclude that overall, the University of Houston is taking reasonable steps to ensure workers' rights. But what are they basing that conclusion on? They haven't presented any evidence or data the reader can review. What reasonable steps are they taking to ensure workers' rights? The next part of the report, they try to shift the focus to the campus retailer Barnes & Noble's by stating that Barnes & Noble's has taken reasonable steps to ensure it's not selling apparel made from sweatshop labor. But what are the reasonable steps that they're taking? They don't tell us. And anyway, Barnes & Noble's isn't an issue here. They just sell the clothes. It's the university who owns the trademark and the license to the logos. They're the ones that sign off on who's allowed to manufacture a garment with their logo. In the third paragraph of the report, they state, "There does not currently appear to be any way to absolutely ensure that apparel is manufactured under acceptable conditions." Now we're going to get somewhere. They're actually identified the problem. So, and as we said in our presentation to this committee, the monitoring factories isn't enough. That's what the Designated Suppliers Program is. Because the Fair Labor Association and the Worker Rights Consortium can't monitor tens of thousands of factories across the world, we need something else. And that's the DSP. 45 universities have signed on to it. Implementing the DSP, that's the solution. Yet, the University of Houston Task Force would have you believe, well, there's nothing we can do about it, so let's just give up. That's not good enough. Not when 45 universities have concluded that they must proactively address this issue. The next thing the task force mentioned in their report is they looked at the Fair Labor Association, the Worker Rights Consortium, Designated Supplier Program. But they don't tell us what they found. Instead, they just say, the task force agreed with UH Students Against Sweatshops report there'll be likely little impact from joining the WRC, the DSP. But the problem is, Students Against Sweatshops, we never said that. Our goal is the university to sign on to the Designated Suppliers Program. You can look at the video of our presentation on our blog. We gave the task force. That's all there. You can look at the slideshow we used. It's on our blog, where slide 26 says our solution is a Designated Suppliers Program. We asked the task force, Dr. Craig is the chairman, a week ago to correct his inaccuracies in his report, but he refused to. So finally, after they didn't present any evidence, no methodology, no data, no sources, no footnotes, the task force concludes, in summary, they found no direct evidence that the university is knowingly or even unintentionally engaging in the sale of licensed trademark products manufactured under sweatshop conditions. Well, you know, the United States government says 75% of all garment factories in the United States are sweatshops. So the task force is trying to preposterously state, making this preposterous claim that there isn't any data in our report and the clothes aren't being made in sweatshops, when the government and other authorities clearly say basically all clothes are made in sweatshops unless they're union made. And even then, when it's union made in another country, in a third world country, the brands compete against each other to drive the price down. So at the end of the report, the task force says join the Workers' Rights Consortium, join the Fair Labor Association, adopt its code of conduct, and a few more things, not to join the Designated Suppliers Program. But then we look at Couture. Dr. Couture responded to their report. And if you just look at her press release, one page, it starts out to faculty and staff. So she's only addressing the faculty and staff. Students brought this issue up. We brought this issue up. And she doesn't even have the decency to put us on her press release, just faculty and staff. So maybe it's just a technicality, a small oversight, but we think that's a really good insight into Dr. Couture's personality. She doesn't even have to address students. She writes in her reaction, I'm gratified to learn the university is taking reasonable steps to support fair labor practices. Yeah, I'd like to learn that too, but what is she basing that statement on? What steps are they taking? They aren't taking any steps. Couture apparently thinks that if you just release a press release saying, you know, here's no evidence for our report, well, that's all we have to do. The next thing Couture says is, after carefully reviewing the task force report and seeking input from other sources, she will make a decision. But who are these other sources? We know